Today, my long-term review of the Nikon Z6 II. I can't believe this camera just came out 6 months ago. I feel like I've used this camera more in that 6-month window than any other camera within any 6-month window of my photography career. Math on that, basically I've been shooting a lot. We've been shooting a lot in very terrible conditions for photography. Things like did you know that minus 40 Celsius equals minus 40 Fahrenheit? I didn't know that until this year when we put ourselves in that environment with this camera, and it performed really, really well. It's also been completely covered in snow and ice, and the weather sealing, maybe to speak to that quickly, if you're just interested in a very rugged and dependable camera that can go out into the world regardless of the situation, know that this Z6 II has your back. As I guess maybe the core specs of this, it is a 24 megapixel backside illuminated CMOS sensor, which means low light performance is gonna be really good. And then just general performance as well. For myself to speak to as somebody that does both photography and video coverage as well, usually at the same event, if we're out shooting snowboard content, I'm doing photos and also videos, sometimes on the same run as somebody's coming down at me. If I'm at a wedding, I'm doing both photography and video coverage as one person there as well. And this camera really keeps up. It is the dual processors paired with the super fast cards it goes in your main card slot. And it just makes your life really easy. You're never waiting for the camera to keep up. The camera is always right there and just ready to go. I wear a number of different hats in the photography and video space. One of them is that of a wedding photographer. This is the perfect camera for wedding photography. This is the perfect camera for wedding photography / video coverage as well. 24 megapixels, I'm super, super happy with. That's the sweet spot, I think, for wedding images, for portrait shoots, for branding shoots, for really anything general. For continuous shooting, you can do up to 14 frames a second. So if I'm out doing the snowboard, the jumps, then I can get a lot of content really fast and really freeze that exact decisive moment. You can also do 4K 60 on this camera now. So there's an firmware update that came out a little while ago now. It both increases eye autofocus performance as well as adds 4K 60. You do get a crop with 4K 60, but what I found is that out in the field doing ski and snowboard photography, I very much welcomed that crop, that I wanted more telephoto at the end of my lens, and it actually kind of helped me out a lot. Another thing that I do a lot is if I'm recording regular HD, is that I bounce between full frame and DX mode, crop mode quite often, so that I'm able to get maximum versatility out of my lenses. If you follow the channel, you'll notice that I shoot a lot on prime lenses, and I'll have that 20mm f1.8 on this camera, and I'll be switching between both full frame to DX mode to turn that into a 30mm f1.8, so that I'm able to get slightly different shots but keep the footprint down. Maybe to speak to footprint quickly and how easy it is to bring this camera with you, it's very, very small. The kit lens, the 24-70 f4, is also very nice. It's about that big. So as far as the travel camera goes, this is really an incredible piece that you can just put in your backpack that doesn't take up too much space, and it doesn't weigh a whole heck of a lot either. I mentioned cards, 2 card slots. As a wedding photographer, as really anyone that's doing something that you want that instant redundancy, all of my photos are just backed up to a second card. I find that just calms my anxiety, especially at once in a lifetime moment like a wedding day. That is something that I absolutely require from a camera. So I'm very, very happy that the Nikon Z6 II added that second card slot. When it comes to autofocus, the autofocus has been upgraded, and it continues to get upgraded through firmware, which is really, really incredible. It comes with 273 phase detect autofocus points, and those autofocus points push over nearly the entire sensor. Another thing that I find really useful as I guess an events and wedding photographer, performance photographer sometimes, is the silent shooting mode in this camera. You can do an electronic silent shooting mode that just allows you to be completely silent in the room, which is sometimes weird. Don't use it all the time. That if you have people looking at you and you're taking their photo and you're in silent mode, they're going to be very confused why your camera isn't making any noise. So maybe turn it on for that, so they have some audio confirmation that you're doing your thing. But it really is something that's useful for me in the field. There is a top OLED display here that I find to be really helpful. Just I guess my transition from digital SLR, I was always through the viewfinder, or pretty much I would say 80–90% of the time through the viewfinder. Going into mirrorless, I find myself using the back LCD a lot more, and just from the physical kind of placement of my camera, I find that I'm using this top OLED display a lot more than I usually would. The tilting display at the back of this camera, I find, so I guess the comparison is always against a fully articulating screen that I can have my screen fully flipped out for selfie cam. I find that in the field that this is more useful in general. For self-filming, I obviously kind of need some sort of forward thing. You can get an Atomos recorder to put up top if you want, but I find as an actual working photographer that this screen is much more useful. Basically, the idea is that if I want to go like this to just be able to see at a slightly different perspective and have a fully articulating screen, I have to pop it out, spin it around, and then it's now out on this side, which I don't really love. This is just a much better system overall for what I do as a working photographer. There is a new battery in this camera, and it's also backwards compatible. If you have older Nikon batteries, they will work in this camera. They just might not be able to be recharged by USB-C. Now, if you're doing like a long time lapse, or if you know you're just gonna be out there all day and you just wanna keep a good charge in your battery, you can be running a battery pack while you're actually out there using the camera. The battery life rating on paper says that it's 410 frames if you're using the LCD, or a little bit less, I think 340 if you're through the actual EVF. I have found in actual real life use wildly different results, up to the point of doing 2,000, 3,000 frames per day, and also recording some video in that as well, and still just being on one battery. I find that if we're out in the world and we're shooting just a regular day where we're not doing rolling coverage of a bunch of stuff, or we're not doing like 1,000 photos spaced out over the period of the entire day with the camera always active. In real life use, when you're turning the camera off and on every now and then doing a little bit of coverage with it, I found that I'm getting somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 frames of photos, and also doing some video in there as well. And winter conditions, cold conditions, obviously a lot more difficult on the battery life level, and we were just completely fine. This is also shooting a lot of 4K 60. So know that the battery life, if you're nervous about that it is a heck of a lot better than it says on paper. So photographically, this camera is really fantastic. When it comes to the video side of things is where it becomes even more powerful and expandable, and just absolutely insane that you can get it for this price point. With an Atomos recorder, you unlock a lot of different functionality. You can do a paid upgrade to get ProRes RAW or Blackmagic RAW if you're interested in that. Or through the Atomos recorder, you can be doing N-Log, 10-bit N-Log, and turning this camera into a full functioning cinema camera very quickly. This is what we're recording on today, and I think it looks pretty good through that Atomos recorder. So the Nikon Z6 II is a really powerful and expandable camera that really will, wherever your career in photography and video production goes, it will be up to the task of following you there. The Z series lenses, all absolutely amazing, and the ones that they continue to add are, I find them to be extremely useful. As far as like the 1.8 lens, the primes go, I find that they are very much a professional grade lens. This 50 1.2 is also amazing. But the primes like the 24 1.8 and the 85 1.8, they're both professional lenses that I am happy to use, and they really keep the footprint of them down. So both when you're traveling, or if you're a wedding photographer and you have all of your equipment in your bag and you just don't want to be carrying around a lot of heavy glass, buy the one key lens that you want, like this 50 1.2, if that's going to be on your camera most of the day, and then supplement that with other primes, like maybe the 20 prime, the 20 1.8, or the 24 1.8, or the 35, that it makes a really incredible professional expandable kit in a very tiny footprint that it's very easy to carry with you throughout the day. That is all for my long-term review of the Nikon Z6 II. I am super happy with this camera overall, and I've just had a fantastic time with the Z series, the entire system, as well as this camera specifically. And if you are interested in purchasing this camera, there is a link in the description below. You can head over there and you can go buy one of your own Z6 IIs. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Please like this video if you found it useful. And as a bit of an outro, I will be showing you a few more photos and videos shot by this camera over the past couple of months.
I would not like to update my account settings. I just want an XL. Just get me an XL, Uber. Please, sorry. Okay, Uber XL ordered.
They said it was a camera. It doesn't